have 2 kids by 2 different dads. He has 2 kids by 1 mum. There's a lot of different energies going in and out of our house. There's such a fear when you're a mum of admitting that I think everyone else would just be better off without me. I'm doing such a bad job at this. I'm terrible at this. Yeah. I look back now and I was doing a brilliant job. I wasn't doing a bad job at all. I was doing the weather on GMTV then, and I carried on working until I blocked all of Ireland and half of Wales with my bump.
It's a nice little barometer. Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Happy Mum, Happy Baby, the podcast. Today's guest is a journalist. She's a broadcaster. She is someone who I have run a 10K with in our underwear. She's also the mother of 2 children, or 2 adults really. It's Andrea McLean.
Hello. Oh my gosh, I know. There's not many people we can say that we've run in our pants alongside.
No,
but we have.
Absolutely. So we did the Vitality 10K. It must have been 2019?
Yeah, yes. I think it was there. Yeah, it was just before COVID, the year before COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I know. I still can't believe I said yes to that.
Well, I thought when Bryony Gordon talked us both into it, and when she first asked, I honestly thought she was asking to do a marathon. And I was like, I've just had a baby. Like, Max came in August 2018. And I was like, I just don't know if I can. And she was like, oh, okay, no worries. It is only a 10K. Only a 10K. And then she just caught me at a moment where I just went, yeah, all right then, I'll do it. Why not?
Had you done a marathon before?
No.
See, I'd never run 10K.
I'd never run 10K.
Before.
I did 5K when I was younger.
Same.
Yeah.
Oh, look at us. But we did it.
We absolutely
And actually it was all right.
Andrea, where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Trinidad in the Caribbean.
Did you?
Yeah.
How long were you there for?
All in all, until I was 15. So I know most people don't know this.
I had
no
idea.
And do you know what's really nice? I'm glad you didn't know, because then we get a genuine response.
Yeah.
So my parents are Scottish.
Yeah.
My mum and dad met and married really young. They met at 15 and 16. They married at 20 and 21. Dad left school with nothing and was an apprentice engineer, and was at 21 given the chance to put some of the machinery he'd been working on into a factory out in the Caribbean, into a sugar factory.
Wow. And
they had never been abroad before. It was a typical Glasgow, Gorbals, working class family where you live round the corner from your mum and dad. My mum was training to be a hairdresser, and he decided to go for it. So they did, and mum cried a lot for, I think, the first year.
Especially back then, it must have felt like such a distant place. Like, I feel like the Caribbean now maybe it's so accessible. There are flights every day.
Yeah.
And
this was 1966, I think it was. And it was like flying to the moon. I mean, it was so different. Yeah. They didn't know anyone who'd ever done anything like this before, and fair play to them. And then my mum became pregnant with me, and I was always going to be a boy called Andrew, hence why I'm called Andrea. And they wanted me born in Scotland so that when I became a professional footballer, I could play for Scotland. So mum was so far gone in her pregnancy she couldn't fly, so they actually came back to Scotland on a banana boat.
No.
Literally on a boat that took its time going up through the Caribbean, picking up bananas along the way. Again, this is back in the 60s.
Also, I'm glad you clarified, because for some people,
no,
Andrea,
not on the back of a speedboat.
Yes.
No.
It's just an inflatable that you get bumped around on. So I'm glad we have clarified that it was an actual boat.
She didn't traverse the Atlantic.
Just picked up bananas.
That's so funny. That's so funny. Gosh, yeah, that health and safety out the window.
Because that was the first thing that entered my mind was the inflatable.
On a banana boat. No, literally it was a big ship that picked up bananas. And they got back to Glasgow, and my mum's side of the family worked in the shipyards in Glasgow. My granddad was a carpenter. Mum was granny was a cook in the kitchens, and my dad's mum worked for a bakery. And there is relevance to this. I was nearly born in the back of my nan's bakery van because Mum went into labour while they were having a knees up round the piano at Granny's flat, like they did. And then she didn't feel very well, thought she'd wet herself. Turns out her waters had broken 4 weeks early. And I was rushed into, well, she was rushed into hospital. I was born 4 weeks premature and in an incubator, £4.11.
Oh, my God.
Back in 1969. And yeah, then it was like round the clock feeding to try and get me well. And then a month later flew out to the Caribbean.
Really? So your mum and dad were very much like, we're not going to stay.
No.
Which must have been really tough for your mum. Like, I don't know if you ever spoke to her about that feeling of you've actually got all your family and your support network around you. And then, we know what it's like to have a newborn, suddenly go, okay, I see all this support and now I'm going to go across the world again to Trinidad.
I know. And I think they'd come home wondering what it was going to be like to walk back in the door and see all their friends and this kind of thing. And actually they had a real sense of, we've done the right thing, rather than, oh my gosh, what have we done? So when they went back, actually my mum was a lot happier than when she was there before because she realised she'd been kind of missing the wrong thing and she realised that this was an opportunity for a whole different way of life.
So I guess you had quite a different upbringing in terms of location and things like that. Did you at any point think about the future and you being a mum and having your own children and your own family?
No, I always said I wanted a dog. Really? I was really quite clear on the fact that I didn't want kids. I wanted a dog. And because I love dogs. And it wasn't that I didn't like kids, it's just they didn't really factor. Yeah. It just wasn't on my radar. And so that was, even do
you think that's because of like being career driven?
No. Whereas my sister, she loved kids from when she was a kid. Yeah. And she was always the one rounding up the other kids and looking after them. Whereas I was off on my bike and playing with my friends or, what have you. It just wasn't on my radar at all. And then it changed when I was 28, 29. I'd been going out with my first boyfriend, who I literally hung on to around the knees and ankles and refused to go, no matter how many times he tried to kick me off. So we were together for 17 years in the end. We were together a very long time. And we'd been together for 11 years. And so I've had a lifetime of endometriosis. And at the time, I didn't know it was endometriosis. I just thought it was this troublesome, painful thing. And I eventually, after a series of tests and laparoscopy and all this kind of thing, this quite dismissive man said, oh yes, riddled, absolutely riddled with it. Only one of your tubes is working, you have cysts on your ovaries, absolutely severe endometriosis. Frankly, my dear, it'll be a miracle if you have a baby. And that was how I found out. And
how did you feel in that moment?
Like I'd been punched. And I remember leaving the room in the hospital and walking down the street and for the first time noticing mothercare and for the first time noticing mums with prams and toddlers. And it was like this tsunami of need. Yeah. It's the only way I could describe it. And I remember I got home and I sat down and I waited for him to come home and I told him what the doctor had said. And I said that if I'm going to have children, I need to start thinking about it soon because I can't remember how old I was. It's 28 or 29. Once I get into my 30s, obviously it will get harder and the longer I leave it. And we've been together for 11 years now. So I think maybe we should start thinking about this. And he was like, oh, no, I'm not ready for that. I said, well, we've been together for 11 years now, maybe. And he's like, well, I don't even know if I want to marry you. I said, but we've been together that long, surely.
What else have you got to do
What are we
at that
doing?
Point?
So I did what I wouldn't necessarily recommend my own kids do, was I gave him an ultimatum. I said, you've got 6 months to make your mind up. And I get that I'm not going to push anybody into anything. But you've got 6 months. And if you really think, do you know what? No, this isn't for me. Then we go our separate ways. Mm-hmm. But if not, brilliant. We join hands and we do this thing. And he did ask. And we did end up getting married. And then it started a whole kind of roller coaster of trying naturally for, I think, 18 months, 2 years. And then IVF. And then eventually had my son.
Well, 22 years ago, people wouldn't have been talking about IVF in the same way that they do now.
No, I never mentioned a word of it to anyone. No, I didn't even tell my in-laws until my then-in-laws, until one day my then mother-in-law made quite a barbed comment about the fact that I was obviously far too career-driven to be having children. Otherwise, it would have happened by now. And I said, well, actually, no, I'm actually having fertility treatment. I am awash with hormones and feeling really quite odd right now. And I'm trying my best. It's just not happening. And then it was never mentioned again.
Really?
And that's how it was. Yeah, going into work. And literally, I remember one day feeling like, I can feel my blood. I can feel the blood running all around my body. It's the weirdest sensation. I could feel like the rush of, I don't know, my body working, whatever it was. It was, I was on Clomid for a while, which is what really makes you produce all the eggs and all this sort of stuff. So that was a bit bonkers. And then
Did you have anyone that you could talk to about it at that time? Anyone that had been through it?
No, I didn't know anyone who'd been through it. When I see people being so open about it now, I'm just really happy for them. I'm happy that they're, one, able to talk about it, and two, that they're kind of held, if you like.
Yeah.
And I know that wasn't my experience, but that's okay. It's fine.
Can you remember finding out you were pregnant with Finley?
Yes, really clearly, because I was my sister's bridesmaid. I was her best woman, if you like, or maid of honour, or whatever it's called. And I had gone to Wales. She was getting married in Wales. And I'd headed over there. And I remember it was the day before her wedding. And my dad was, we'd all come from all parts of the country because she was, nobody else lived in Wales. And my dad was driving and I felt so car sick in the back of the car. Now, asterisk, always feel car sick when my dad's driving. So it wasn't anything kind of weird. And then I remember we were walking around Cardiff and I was like this, my boobs feel really weird. And then I felt like I was smelling everything and I literally went, ooh. So everyone was, I think we were either on our way to a pub or somewhere or like a lunchtime thing. And I said, I just need to pop to Boots. So I popped to Boots. I bought a pregnancy test, nipped into Debenham's toilets in Cardiff and did a test and literally nearly dropped it down the toilet because I was pregnant. Then I went back into Boots and I bought 3 more and I carried them in my handbag. And I didn't say a word to anyone because it was my sister's big day and I didn't want to take the attention away from her. And that night when I got home, got back to where we were staying, I did another one. And then I did another one in Asda supermarket. I was just like everywhere I could go and wee. I was doing all these tests. And then I didn't say anything until way later. When my then husband, he joined us, I think, on the morning of the wedding because he was working. And I told him.
Right.
Obviously, I told him. And he was in shock. I think shock and horror rather than shock and pleasure because it was like, oh my God, my life is about to change. Yep. Feeling sick all the time, all the normal stuff. I put on 4 stone with him and I put on 4 stone with Amy. I, in my head, thought I would look like Victoria Beckham when I was pregnant. In my head, I had this image of wearing like a slinky black dress and looking like a snake that had swallowed a tennis ball. You know, that kind of still really cool. I did not look like that. I literally put on so much weight and so much water, I think.
Were you on TV throughout as well?
Oh, yes. I was doing the weather on GMTV then. And I carried on working until I blocked all of Ireland and half of Wales with my bump.
It's a nice little barometer.
Literally, when I left, and I said, right, that's it, I'm heading off now. Peter McHugh, the director of programmes at the time, he said, thank God for that. Thank God for that. Half the country isn't seeing the map. Go on.
How did you feel heading towards the births and actually meeting the babies?
Just so excited, really excited. With Finley, I was induced because I think I either went 10 days or 2 weeks overdue. I can't remember. Whatever the cutoff point is, that's what I went to. That wasn't great. I was all excited going in because you're going to be induced. So in my head, I'm thinking, well, this is going to be quick. They're going to give me something and then a few hours later, out we go, there's a baby. And I went in on Sunday afternoon, and by that evening, nothing had really happened. My then husband decided to go home because, in his words, there's no point both of us being tired. So he went home, and so I was on my own all night going through labour when it properly kicked in. And then in the morning, they found out I was only 1 centimetre dilated, and I'd already done 10 hours or something like that. So eventually I was taken into another bit of the hospital, and they gave me an epidural. And then in the end, I was in labour for about 18 hours, and Finley got stuck. They took oxygen from the top of his head and found out he was severely distressed. So I then, and then you have the little heart monitor thing on your tummy. His heart went from, that kind of crazy, it went from, and I was literally like an episode of Casualty, whisked down the corridor, straight into having an emergency cesarean.
Really?
He was taken out, bless him. It wasn't good. And they gave me so much epidural, I was paralyzed from my chest down. And so I couldn't move. I couldn't move my arms. I could only just about move my head. I couldn't hold him when I first had him. He didn't cry when he was first born. It was very, very stressful. He had and still has, his head was very pushed in because of where he'd been stuck. And so he had a little cone head, bless him.
Like the way you said, and he still has it.
Yeah, he still has. He does have the cone head, but he's still, one side of his head is a little bit sort of flat in. I tried cranial osteopathy afterwards, but it didn't really work. But yeah, and I looked at him, this funny little cone-headed baby, and fell madly in love. He was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. But yeah, and my experience of having Amy was very different because I fell pregnant naturally and unexpectedly.
Really?
I didn't think I would ever be able to have children again.
I mean, talk me through this pregnancy test, because that must have been quite the
That was very
shock.
different.
Yeah.
Yes. So by now I'm divorced and in a relationship that I hadn't considered that this would be part of it.
Okay.
And I remember we'd been out the night before, and we were sitting in a pub, and I was like, this pub smells disgusting. It smells like bleach. Can you not smell the bleach? And he was like, I can't smell anything. It really smells of bleach. It really smells...
The boobs again.
The boobs. The boobs, the smell. And I went, we need to go to a chemist. He was like, what? So we drove around looking for a chemist. And then I rushed upstairs, and then I can remember it was just... Oh, wow.
On such different emotions.
This is not what I thought would ever happen. It's totally different emotions.
Did he have kids?
No.
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 Okay.
And I came downstairs and I said, do you remember when I said, it would have to be, what was that I said? It would have to be divine intervention or whatever. Well, ta-da! Guess what? And we both kind of looked at each other. And then I just knew instantly that this was going to be my baby. There was no question of anything. And it was a case of, I fully respect that this is not what you signed up for.
Yeah.
But it is going to happen.
Yeah.
And this is now up to you. Yeah. Whatever
your
you want
input
to do
is
fine. And we decided to make a go of it. So we were together for 8 years.
Yeah. And what was that pregnancy like?
Do you know what? It was lovely. I don't know if it was because mentally I knew it would probably be my last.
Yeah.
It was very different in terms of, yes, I still felt sick and all the things. And I lived on my own for most of it.
Really?
With Finley and an au pair, because I'd been a single parent with Finley. And I really took my time over, I'm not rushing into, right, come on, quick, let's do this thing and make it. I was like, we have all the time in the world to make this decision. And so,
was it quite early days then of you two being together?
I can't quite remember now. I think we'd been together for 18 months. We'd broken up and got back together quite a few times. It was not necessarily the healthiest of relationships. So yeah, we'd broken up and got back together quite a few times.
Which obviously led to you going, I know what I need to be calm, to make this a stable environment for me, to, you know.
And it sounds like a strange thing to say, because really all I'd ever wanted was to emulate what my mum and dad had. Was my mum and dad are still together. They still love the bones off each other. They still get on, you know, they're great. And I always thought that's what I would have. Yeah. So the fact that I met and fell in love with my childhood sweetheart, and obviously for many, many reasons that didn't work out. And then now I find myself, I'm pregnant with my second child, and I'm actually living on my own. There was a lot to kind of get my head around, but I did feel at peace with it.
Really?
I did. I wanted it to work. I wanted the relationship to work for many reasons. But one of the main reasons was I never wanted this beautiful baby growing inside me to ever feel like it was a mistake.
Yeah.
Because I've never, ever, ever viewed it that way. Hand on heart, this is a miracle.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it?
It's a miracle
people
baby.
Now refer to IVF babies very much as a miracle. The fact that the science has helped life be created, it blows my mind. But also instances like that where you are told categorically no.
Yeah.
And then to be sort of
what a joy,
touched by that.
What an amazing thing. I'm so lucky. And that's how I felt. I'm so lucky. Absolutely. This is not the nuclear family kind of way that we are told that this is going to happen. But oh my God, how lucky am I?
Yeah.
So no, I cherished it. I loved being pregnant. I did all the I didn't bother going to antenatal classes because I kind of knew it was coming, in that you never know what's coming. You
can be prepared to be unprepared.
Yeah, exactly. So no, it was a lovely pregnancy, actually. It was really good.
How are those periods of getting home and being with your newborns? Did they feel very, very different to each other?
100%. So the first time round, I remember with Finley, I got home and he was in the little car seat and we put him in the living room and I burst into tears and I started raging. How could they have sent me home? What is the matter with these people? I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. How could they possibly send me home with a newborn baby and expect me to know how to look after it? Finley's dad just went, I think you should go to bed. I think you need a sleep. And I was like, I can't sleep now. I've got a baby. He was like, go to sleep. And when I woke up, I did feel a lot calmer.
Yeah.
But I rang my cousin Heather up in Scotland, and because she'd had babies. And I said, Heather, I'm at a loss. I don't know what to do. None of this makes any sense to me. And she's brilliant. I mean, she's a friend anyway, but she's my cousin. And she just kind of talked me through it. She was like, right, don't stress about anything. You will know what to do. You will know how to do the things. And if you can't feed, because he wouldn't feed properly, go and get formula. Don't beat yourself up and start thinking, I need to do this thing. Do whatever you want. And whatever you feel is going to get you through, do that.
Yeah.
Which was the best advice.
Feeding causes such worry, anxiety, so much. And I think it's so important to have those people to give you that support, whether it is someone saying that. Happy Mum, Happy Baby actually comes from Emma Willis saying that to me when Buzz was 6 weeks old, because he was my first and I was trying to feed him and I got it in my head that I needed to feed. That was what I should be doing. And she just said to me, gee, Happy Mum, Happy Baby, if you are in a bad position, if you're constantly putting this pressure on yourself, that's feeding through and you're never going to be able to just enjoy being a mum and settle.
And she's right. She's
totally
so right.
But it just took the pressure off. It allowed me, so I did stay breastfeeding, but it allowed me to kind of go, where is this pressure coming from? Why am I allowing this to be placed on me? And actually, if there are other options, realise there are other options and don't feel so stuck in whatever you've got set up.
I was very lucky in that I never put that pressure on myself.
Really?
I don't know why I didn't. I just didn't. Maybe because my mum had bottle fed me, because I was so premature. I'd been pumped with as much as anything they could get into me, sort of thing. So my mum had always had a very relaxed attitude to whatever it takes is what you do. Don't don't feel forced into anything. I tried. It didn't work for me. Only one boob worked, and it ended up looking like jam. It just was not good. And so, again, without labeling it what you called it, happy mum, happy baby, I thought he is very stressed. He's had a traumatic birth anyway. He had colic. And I'm now putting this other pressure on where I'm trying to ram this boob into his mouth, and he's not latching on properly and all this stuff. And I called time on this really quickly. It was in about a week. I just, no, we're not doing this. And I was so relieved.
Really?
So relieved. Because actually he took to it right away. It meant I could just focus on, trying to get him well, because I just felt that he had such a bumpy start to life. And it made a big difference. And then so I went into it with Amy. Amy, I think I lasted a whole 2 weeks with Amy, and then I was like, nope, same thing, one boob, it's gone to jam. And any mums will know what that means.
Yeah.
I'm just going on to formula, and I'm okay with that. Yeah. And I'm the only one who needs to be okay with it.
Yes.
And I don't really care what anybody else thinks, because I'm the one living my life at home with this child.
I always think Joan down the road, which I always say Joan, and Joan is actually my nan-in-law. So my nan-in-law is an amazing person, but I always use Joan for some reason. But Joan down the road can, she can say what she wants, she can think what she thinks, but she's not there at 3 o'clock in the morning.
No.
When your baby is crying, and your baby is so connected to every bit of your being.
Yeah.
That the impact that it has on your body and how you feed that into your baby, it's just like, to be able to remove that pressure.
I did it by the book because my parents were living overseas. Mm-hmm. I didn't have that unit to, so I tried to get it from a book. And I regret so many of the decisions that I made then. And I feel...
Is that with Finley?
Yeah. And I don't feel mum guilt about working. Yeah. I don't feel mum guilt about many things. But with that, I do. Mainly because from day one, he didn't sleep in the same room with us. He was down the hall, and my heart breaks for that poor baby crying. And I was leaving him to cry it out, and you think...
But that was what was happening 22 years ago. That's absolutely what people, and I think it's really hard, isn't it, to judge yourself by what people are doing now.
100%.
Because that's, I can remember a neighbour of mine saying, we just put her in a bedroom and locked the door. What? So what? And she was like, then she stopped crying eventually. It's like, ow. Whereas now,
Amy was in the room next to me 6 months, 9 months, I can't remember. And actually, we were all so chilled about it because she was happy because I was right there. Yeah. And because I could just put my hand out and know that she was fine, or if she made a little snuffle before she'd built even up to the point of crying, mums tune in, know the snuffle of feeding wet, whatever. I was up and out and in the living room, so no one else got woken up. And then actually you were never in this panic. It all happened so much more smoothly. And
but
then
also first time around, because of reading the books, there's the right wrong. Yes. You know what I mean? You've got a right way of doing stuff, so you better be on it because there's a right way of doing it.
All of it. Like clockwork as well. Everything was like clockwork. Whereas I didn't do the clockwork thing. I actually kind of let it be what it would be. Yeah. And she was a more content baby. Yeah. And so, if I could rewind my time, that is something I would definitely do differently.
Yeah. Let's talk about work, because with Amy you had to go back. Well, no, you didn't have to go back. You went back after 12 weeks.
I did with both of them.
Oh, really?
And I did have to go back because I've always been the breadwinner.
Yeah.
So there was no question of not doing it because, working in telly and you take too long a time off, the waters close over your head and then you've disappeared. Yeah, so I did. I went back after 12 weeks with both of them. It was tough, but it was even tougher with the second one.
Because you were also going into Loose Women then. Loose Women, that was the start of this whole new...
My first day back at GMTV, after 12 weeks, on the very first day I got a phone call saying, Loose Women have been in touch. Would you like to work on that show? And my first gut reaction was no. And it was my agent had rung me, and I said, no, absolutely not. That's that program with the shouty ladies. I don't want to go on that show. And I'd been on it once as a guest, and I'd been terrified. And she was like, no, they want you to be the anchor. And I thought, oh, I could do that. I could anchor. I couldn't be a panelist.
You're just controlling the shouty.
Because I'm a very balanced person.
You are,
I'm not it's obviously a brilliant show, and I was there for 13 years.
Well, it's about to turn 25, so it's
exactly.
It's done all right.
It's done all right,
yeah.
And it's clearly a winning formula. And I love that it has opinionated people who are really prepared to stick to their guns. But I'm not like that.
Yeah.
So once I knew I was going to do that, but yes, that was really hard. So I was getting up at sort of 3 a.m. to do breakfast telly, doing the night feed about 10, then going to bed, getting up at 3, doing the weather, literally going down in the lift, and by 8:30 was 8:45 was in the morning meeting for Loose, and then we'd do a live show, and then back in those days we would also then pre-record another show in the evening. So I wouldn't get home until about 8 o'clock, and then I'd have to get up and go and do GMTV again with a tiny baby and a 5-year-old. And we had just moved. So we had moved out to Surrey. I knew no one, literally no one. And Amy's dad was realizing that actually living in a house in a place he doesn't know anyone either with a 5-year-old and a brand new baby is very hard.
Well, yeah.
He came to that conclusion that it was very hard.
Well, especially when you're off, doing what you do to support the family.
Yep.
In terms of care, I know you had an au pair, but he's
hard.
also got to play a big part in that. He can't.
And to be fair, he was great.
Yeah.
He was really great. But yeah, it was tough. It was very tough. And also I've just had a baby. So your brain is not functioning in the way that it normally would. And I remember when I said yes to it because it was the right thing to do, and I'm so glad I did, but I said yes before I was ready, which is what most of us do.
Yeah. Because we don't know when that opportunity is, if that's going to be taken away, if it will ever come back again.
And it would never have come back again.
Yeah.
I know that. And I remember going in and thinking, right, clearly I know how to present. I know how to do this. I know how to host, because I used to also sometimes be the guest anchor on GMTV. I stood in for Lorraine. I'd already done all that sort of stuff. But this was very different. This was chairing a panel with very feisty ladies, with a studio audience and all of that. It was very different.
To manage.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
And so what I did was I thought, what would someone who knows what they're doing do?
Right. Okay.
So I pretended I was someone who knew what they were doing. So,
that's a nice little way of doing it in life. But if someone who knew what they were doing in this situation...
What would they do?
What would they do? Okay.
So that's what I did. And I pretended to be someone who knew what they were doing. And then there'd be a moment where something would happen, and inside my eyeballs are flickering, thinking, I have no clue what to do now. I think, right, what would someone who does this all the time, what would they do? And I think as long as you keep quite a good poker face, you can kind of get away with it. But I would get away with it on air, and then I'd cry all the way home.
No.
All the way home in the car thinking, I can't do this. This is really hard because I'm so tired. I have a baby. I have a 5-year-old. We've moved. We're in this village where everything shuts on a Wednesday. Why does everything shut on a Wednesday? It's so strange. It was hard, plus bedding in with the dynamics of a new show.
Well, I've heard you talking about that period and talking about postnatal depression. At what point did you realise, actually, there is so much going on? And, maybe there's other things going on, basically.
I think when Amy was maybe about 1, coming up to 1, maybe. I can't quite remember now. Is it funny how the brain blanks it out? But all I knew was I felt hugely overwhelmed. But the rational side of me was going, Mrs., of course you're overwhelmed. Look at all these things that you're trying to do all at the same time. Cut yourself some slack. You're going to feel overwhelmed. But then the other side of me was, but this doesn't feel like normal overwhelmed. Because I'm quite a plucky person. I'm quite a resilient person. For me, it was, it was like feeling like you're drowning on dry land in front of everybody and no one can tell you're drowning. And you can't say anything because there's such a fear when you're a mum of admitting that I think everyone else would just be better off without me. I'm doing such a bad job at this. I'm terrible at this.
Yeah.
I look back now and I was doing a brilliant job. I wasn't doing a bad job at all. And I mentioned it once, kind of tentatively, to her dad. And he completely lost his temper with me and told me to pull myself together and stop being so stupid. And that was like right, so we never speak of this. I will never say anything again. Yeah. Okay, I will keep holding this in.
Which, again, talking about 16 years ago, mental health wasn't
nearly 18 years ago.
Yeah.
She's nearly 18 now. About 16 then. What I did do, again, the sensible side of me was I thought, okay, so I might not mention it there, but I'm going to go to the doctors.
Yeah.
So I secretly took myself off to the doctors and sat down with a very nice lady GP, and I said, I think I'm depressed. She went, okay, tell me what's going on. Well, half an hour later, she's still listening to all the things that are going on. She's cancelling on her appointments. And she was so nice. She just looked at me. She went, one, it's no blooming wonder, you're feeling the way you are. And she said, I agree. I think you are depressed. But I think it's everything.
Yeah.
You have not come to terms with the end of your first marriage. You have now found yourself in this new relationship, and also your hormones are all over the place, and you're not getting enough sleep.
Yeah.
See, she gave me some antidepressants, and she said, stop feeling that this is a weakness that you are taking these. Take them just to get you through this time. Don't think this is me now for the rest of my life. You can come back in a year's time and think, I'm good now. But I think you need something to help you. And she was amazing. And so I didn't tell a soul. I didn't tell Amy's dad. I didn't tell anyone. And about 2 months later, he went, well, you seem more like yourself again. And I just went, yeah.
And you didn't say even then?
No, I didn't tell him for ages. Actually, I've been on antidepressants for a while, and I'm so glad I have, because it's like the cloud has lifted, and people make such assumptions, and people call them happy pills. They're not happy pills. They're balancing all these things that are going on in your brain, and I'm so happy that I went on them, because they gave me a clarity of thought that I'd been lacking, and also calm me down. In the same way, like now, I have anxiety tablets that I call them my handbag tablets, and I keep them in my bag in case I start to get overwhelmed. And it's like Dumbo's feather.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have to use them most of the time.
You know that they're there.
And they know that they're there. And I know that I am a very resilient person. I am way stronger than the average bear. I know I am. But I also have times where I get so overwhelmed and feel like I'm short-circuiting with everything. So that's okay. I've got a little tablet in my bag, and then that's okay. And like I say, I don't need them all the time. I like knowing that they're there, and I don't see it as a weakness, because I don't feel weak at all.
When did you feel like you were able to start telling people about what you'd been through?
Much later. And that's where Loose Women was amazing.
Well, Loose Women seems to do this thing, and I absolutely love this about it. It's almost like everyone has this space where they feel safe, where when you're ready, you're able to kind of go, this is what I've experienced. And actually, it feels like all of you women have had periods where you've shared parts, and you especially have kind of gone, this is a piece of me that actually, is there a feeling of wanting people to know your truth or your experience, or almost feeling like saying it might help other people going through it?
I think as women, we find it so much easier to share an ugly truth about ourselves if we feel it's of service.
Yeah.
We never want to share an ugly truth if we think we're going to get judged, or if, why would I otherwise? But if it's going to be of service, then have it all. And this is one of the reasons why I'm so grateful that I said yes to working on Loose Women all those years ago, because it opened up that side to me that I'd never considered before. So I'd always thought, as a TV presenter, you always present your best self. You're always very professional. You do an amazing interview and you make everyone feel great, and you come out on time and you go, thank you very much, and you go home. And you never give of yourself.
Yeah.
Whereas working on that show, you had to give of yourself.
Yeah.
And at first it was really hard. But then, once I'd kind of said something about me and the world didn't implode, you kind of look around and go, actually, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. It became easier and easier to sort of let bits out. In terms of talking about having postnatal depression, I struggled with saying that out loud because I never wanted Amy to feel bad.
Yeah, I get that.
Because she's my miracle baby. I'm so happy that she's in this world. She's this amazing human being. And I would never want her to think that, gosh, because I was born, Mum was sad. Because it wasn't because of her at all. At all. Oh my gosh, she fills my heart with so much love and joy. I'm so happy that she was born. I just happened to go through this thing.
Yeah.
So that was the reason why I didn't want to say anything. And I think also because the initial reaction that I'd had to when I first said out loud, I think I'm depressed, was not a good one.
Yeah.
I was aware that not everyone would be supportive. And then I can't remember how long after it was that I had said something on the show that Loose Women, we ended up winning an award from Mind because of what I'd said.
Yeah.
And because so many people had reached out and got support, and they tracked it back to this moment where I talked about it on the show. That was a changing point for me, because I realized, actually, wow, we have this superpower and we need to use it as a force for good. I felt there are 5 women on the panel. There are 5 women around the desk.
Yeah.
There's the anchor, there's the 3 panelists, and then there's a woman at home.
Yes.
And for me, because my camera was camera 1, and every time we would talk about something that I felt would really powerfully resonate with someone at home, I would deeply look down camera 1 and make sure, and I could see the woman sitting at home, and I would let her know, this is for you. This bit that I'm saying, this is for you. This is for you, as if I'm sitting holding your hand across a table. And it was, for me, it was such an important thing to reach out through the television and touch that woman at home.
Yeah.
And that was when I realized, admitting, yes, postnatal depression, my marriage has ended, I'm having a hysterectomy, all the various different bumps in the road that I've had through my life that I experienced while going on Loose Women. The power of reaching through the TV and holding another woman's hand and going, I'm going through this as well. I can't really describe it. It just felt important.
You've touched on the fact that, you know, those first 2 relationships that they ended. How have you, because obviously the kids are growing up, how have you navigated that? Because obviously you've talked about it on Loose, you've talked about those, but you've also got kids at home. So how have you, you know, those new phases? Because if I think back to my mum and dad, they separated when I was 16, I cannot remember it.
Wow.
I cannot remember anyone sitting us down and saying, this is, they absolutely did. Because, you know, dad, dad was moving out and whatever. But I don't remember that. So that's clearly something that's blocked. But obviously, I know that we all worry so much about what we're doing with our children, how they're going to perceive certain things, how they're going to react. So, I just wondered what you sort of put in place in terms of how you're going to handle.
I think it all depends on the age of the children. And I do think you can't have an adult conversation with a child on an equal level. So you can only ever share with a child what you think they're capable of hearing. Yeah. And then you can kind of turn the volume up later on details and everything else.
Yeah.
But the first thing they need to know is that they're loved and that they're safe. So that was number 1.
Yeah.
In both instances they were very different. So when I first got divorced, Finley was either 18 months or 2. I can't quite remember. So he was little. There was nothing really. He didn't know any different. Yeah. Whereas the second time around, he was 10 and Amy was 5. Wow, what did I mean, there's a lot that I can't talk about because it was quite a chaotic time, and it came to a head really very abruptly and in not a good way.
Yeah.
How it happened was I ended up literally putting the kids in the car with Mum and Dad, and we drove up to Chester. That's where they were living at the time. And I commuted to Luce and never told anyone that I was now living at Mum and Dad's. And then I came back down to Surrey, and I told them that he'd gone away with work.
Mm-hmm. Buy yourself a bit of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just introduced slowly the idea that, okay, he's not going to be living with us anymore. So we're going to have a new house and we're going to move somewhere else. But he's very close by and you are loved and you are safe. And that was kind of it, really.
Really?
Years later, many years later, and I have to pick my way around this, but many years later, Amy was a teenager. Like I say, she's nearly 18 now. She mentioned something, and I realized that the time was now to tell her a fuller version of events. So I told her the fuller version. And she said to me something that, oh my gosh, it choked me up at the time and still chokes me. She said, "Oh my goodness, Mummy, you were like Mrs. Incredible. You stretched over the top of the two of us. And it's like we were sitting on the floor playing and we didn't even notice the bullets were bouncing off you. And you just kept us safe." And I said, "Yep, that's what I was trying to do until you were ready to know and understand. And now you do. I'm here for you, but now I'm walking alongside you. And we're going to get through all of this together."
Yeah.
And now you're ready to, like I say, turn the volume up a little bit on bits that you know. And now she knows the full story and, you know, and everything is all and good. And for me, I felt it was very important with both of my children that whatever the situation is that happened between me and your dad is between me and your dad.
Mm-hmm.
Your relationship is your relationship with you and your dad. And I have no right to try and poison that or discolour that. And I want that to stay as lovely and as strong as possible. Again, it's kind of compartmentalising. So you will never hear me criticising, or I might grit my teeth and say, well, maybe that's not the best way to look at things. Maybe we should try and do it this way. But not in no way try and colour your attitude, because you need to form your own opinions on this based on your own experiences, because otherwise I'm colouring your opinions on my experiences, and that's not fair. And so that's kind of where we are now. And I think that I'm in my 50s now, and you know, my parents are in their late 70s, and I've realised the older I get that you think it changes and it doesn't. Your kids are always your kids.
Yeah. Well, because even now there'll be things that your mum and dad are protecting you from.
Yes.
That's just life.
Yes.
Right?
And that they worry about me.
Yeah.
And all the things. And there will be things that have happened in their life that they haven't told me about because they never thought I was ready. And I know, you know, the time has passed. What's the point of bringing it up? And I realise now, actually, what an incredible job parenting is, because it lasts the whole of their lives, not the whole of your life. It's the whole of their lives. You know, I read this thing yesterday on Instagram, and it said, you are blessed when a dog comes into your life, but you are a dog's whole life for its whole life, because obviously a dog doesn't last as long. And I'd never thought about it that way before, that you are a dog's whole life. But actually it's the same with your children, really. You know, you're not going to be around
but whatever
the end bit.
But you're still a massive part of their life and a massive influence going forward.
Yeah. So I just do my best. That's all you can do, is do your best. And of course there are things that I've done wrong. And of course there are things that, I wish I could kind of rewind and I maybe wouldn't have done that way. But I'd say 80% of it I'm all right with. Yeah. Which I don't think is a bad
good.
a bad ratio.
Yeah. 80%'s wicked.
There's an A, right?
Yeah, absolutely. A. Maybe not an A star, but I'll give you an A.
It's not an A star, no.
And what about dating and things like that? Because obviously that's a different ball game when you're dating, and I guess it's actually a very different thing when you're then going to introduce someone to your kids. There's got to be a lot of thought that goes into that.
I didn't date.
Really?
Oh my gosh, my kids have dated more than I have. I've been married 3 times, but I've only dated 4 people in my whole life. In my whole life, and I dated one person for a few months after I'd been on my own for over a year, and that didn't work. But okay, and I think the kids met him twice,
right,
as a friend, but that was it. But no, I never dated. I had no interest in dating.
Yeah.
When I got divorced, when the kids were older, I didn't date. I went to agricultural college.
That's the kind of divorce I could get on board with.
And I thought, what do I want to do that's just for me?
Yeah.
That I'm going to learn a new skill. I'm not interested in all of that. All I care about is me and my little unit, and are we all right? So there was never really a question of introducing the kids to anyone until Nick, who is currently wearing a badge saying longest serving husband.
I really hope this is a literal badge that he actually wears. Maybe even just the inside of his blazer or whatever he's wearing. I want it tattooed on him.
I think I should. It wasn't until because we met on a blind date that neither of us wanted to go on, because he was getting divorced,
right,
and I'd already been divorced for 2 years by then, and I did not want to go at all. And I only went because the friend who'd set it up, he knew the husband, I knew the wife. She was like, we'll go on a double date, it'll be fine. And I went kind of, and she said, he's really funny, you'll have a nice time, it'll be good. And I didn't expect that I would meet this man who I would end up falling in love with and spending my life with, because I was not looking. But no, I didn't meet his kids for 18 months. Right. He didn't meet mine for about 7 months or so. We really took our time.
Yeah. And how was it when the kids met each other?
They were young, so it was kind of easier because they played, if you know what I mean. I suppose it became more complicated when both sets of kids realized this is becoming a permanent thing.
Yeah.
Because obviously there's hierarchy, and there's kids going from one house to another house and different rules and that kind of thing. But we sat them down. There was one day after, I think somebody had been kicking off about ice cream. Something had happened. I can't remember. And I'd said, I'm going for a walk because I can't be in the house while this is all happening. And I went for a walk, and I sat in the park, and I thought, right, we need to lay down some ground rules with this. We're kind of hoping it will all just work out, but actually we need to set down some ground rules. So I came back and I called Nick to one side, and we had a chat, and then we were like, yep, I agree. So we sat the kids down and we said, we totally get how confusing this is. However, what happens when you're in the other homes happens in the other homes. But when you're in this home, there are rules. And this is how we feel about politeness. This is how we feel about manners. This is how we feel about chores. This is how we feel about all the things. And this is what we won't put up with. And this is what you were actively encouraged to do.
Yeah.
And we love you, but there are certain things that you leave at the door. And just as in, we are never going to criticize what happens in those other houses, you leave them at the door when you come here. And then whatever happens when you go back there again, that's on them and on you, but here, this is how it is.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we've stuck to since. Obviously, it can be quite a fluid situation, depending on, what's happening. And obviously, there's, the kids are now 17, 19, 21 and 22.
Yeah.
Nearly 22 and 23. Of course, ebbs and flows and changes, and you are only ever as happy as your unhappiest child. And that's the same whether they are tiny or older. But what is lovely is is it perfect? No, of course not. No family is perfect. Yeah. There is no such thing. But it's good.
Obviously, you've got that role of stepmum now. And what do you think is really important to you as a stepmum and in that role?
I think to make it really clear that I'm not your mum. I'm not trying to replace anybody. You have a mum, and you have a great mum who loves you very much. And I love you very much, but I will never love you in the same way that your mum loves you, because I'm not your mum.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it a lesser thing. It's a different thing. And I think being honest about that is really important. Maybe that's just in our house. Maybe other houses see it differently. But, I have 2 kids by 2 different dads. He has 2 kids by 1 mum. There's a lot of different energies going in and out of our house.
Does that also make you really aware? I mean, I know you know how important the role is anyway, but because there might be another stepdad, 2 other stepmums, does that make you really aware of that role and what input you would love from those people,
from the others
people? Yeah,
it does. It really does. And I've had my moments where I've let things go, and then I've heard sort of feedback, and I've had to make a phone call and just say, this is all kinds of wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you how to run your house, absolutely not. But when this child is in your house, they need to feel loved, and they cannot feel that they are not as important as your new kids or whatever. They exist, and they're feeling the feels right now, and they're feeling pushed out. So I'm going to leave that with you, but it's really important that they feel that.
Yeah.
I have had to have that conversation. In terms of my role in it, I see my role as to be a place. Our house is a place of peace.
Yeah.
It's a very peaceful house. It's like, leave your drama at the door, because any drama that is kind of generically created whilst in this house belongs to this house. And of course, there will be some. But really, I like it to feel like it's a safe space where you can be silly, you can offload, you can moan about your day, or come in and we will champion you and celebrate you.
Yeah.
But don't bring all your other stuff.
Now that they're all older,
yeah,
do you feel like you can almost breathe a sigh of relief that you've got through all the child stage? They're all sort of young adults.
No,
it's getting
harder.
Worse. Okay,
yeah. And I never thought that would be the case. I thought, oh, when they're out in nappies, oh my God, when I'm not, looking at the baby monitor and panicking they haven't slept through the night, if they've made it through the night. It's a whole different stress. It's a different stress of, where are they? Are they okay? There's parties now that you worry about, and all the things. Like, Amy commutes across London, and she had some weird guy do weird commuter things that sometimes happens, and I'm having to right, okay, this is how you look after yourself.
Yeah.
Finn is off living in Norwich,
and also I guess it's the control element as well. I feel like when they're younger, you can not control certain aspects of hurt, but you are so aware of that, and you can really help them sort of micromanage certain things.
100%.
When they're older, you're literally only involved when they want you to be involved.
Yes, and when they're little, if there's someone that's mean to them in little school, you can kind of steer them towards a friend who maybe isn't that way, or what have you, and help them out sort of that way, like little chicklings. There is that worry, and it's mainly the girls that are around the house, because like I say, Finley's off and away. I think there's way too much estrogen in our house. He literally, there's like a Finley-shaped hole in the wall where he just kind of ran as soon as he could. They all tend to confide in each other, and then someone will confide in us. Right. And so we find out kind of sideways, and then it's like spies. So we have to sort of filter the information back so it doesn't sound like it's coming from us. But maybe some good advice would be this. So there's all these kind of things going on. I think it's an understanding that your baby now isn't telling you everything, and you have to get your head around that and think, that's okay. I didn't tell my mum and dad everything. That's all right. That's all part of it. But I am here when you need me.
Yeah.
And that's my job.
Yeah. If you could write a letter on being a mum or being a parent, who would it be to, and what would you say?
So I thought about this long and hard, and I realized actually I would write a letter to my parents rather than to me when I'm younger or to my children, because my children have the benefit of podcasts like these. They can hear me talking about them when they're little, or hear me giving advice, what have you. Yeah. I've written books. I've written articles. There's so much of me out in the world that they have access to. Whereas my parents, I would write a letter to them, and it would say, "Dear Mum and Dad, I have two things to say to you. First off, I'm sorry. And secondly, thank you." And the first sorry isn't actually for how I was as a child, or how I was as a toddler, or how I was as a teenager. Because actually I was great. I was such an easy child. Really? I was a really easy child and an easy teenager. I genuinely loved my parents' company. I never rebelled. I still love my parents' company. I actually like going around to my parents' house. I find them hilarious. I like spending time with them. I was no trouble at all. And so the sorry actually comes from making mistakes in adulthood when technically I was old enough to know better. Yeah. And I'm sorry for the pain that I know I've caused them through worry. Yeah. It's never deliberate pain, because I'm a good egg, but I've made mistakes and things have happened to me in life that have not necessarily been my fault, but they've happened to me, so I've needed to deal with them. So I'm sorry for the pain that I've caused them at a time when they probably thought, oh, there you go, they're off now, they're done. And actually, it hasn't worked out that way. And the thank you is for their adaptability, because I realize now that you only ever know what you know. And you can only parent through the learned experience and wisdom that you've gained through your life's journey. And if your child is going through something that you've never experienced, it's very difficult to know how to be there for them. Yeah. And so my thank you to them is for holding me, for being there for me, and parenting in the best way they know how. And we have all made mistakes. Yeah. And we have all dropped the ball. But actually, our love is so strong that we found a way back round. We have found a way to make it all work. And that's how I've realized that actually your parenting never stops. Yeah. I'm in my 50s and my parents are still parenting me. And it's beautiful.
Andrea, we finished with you completing 3 sentences.
Okay.
The first one is, being a mum means?
Never sleeping until they get home.
This is what they just sleep. It's here for now, but now it's gone again. There's a minute period where you get the sleep and then it's gone again. It's gone.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, gosh.
Sorry.
It's all right. Let's just get myself prepared. Next one is, since having children,
Wow. Since having children, I have never slept. No. Since having children, I've seen the world through a whole different light. And I now get to live through experiences that I would never have done if I had done what I thought I was going to do in my 20s and just got a dog.
Quite different.
Quite different.
And finally, I'm happy when?
Everyone's home. No. And they're all in the kitchen. and we've got music playing and somebody's trying to make a TikTok and I'm making dinner and there's a bit of noise and chaos. And so often I kind of just turn around and I just look at everybody and they don't even notice that I'm looking, and I just feel so happy. That, to me, is what happiness is.
I love that. Growing up, I used to think that I would be like the Oxo mum, either Maria from The Sound of Music or the Oxo mum. Those were my two, mum pin-ups. But actually what I've realised is that I actually need to wait to get to the Oxo mum. The Oxo mum will still come because hopefully your kitchen is where everyone wants to be, but you've still got to wait to get there. It's not going to happen instantly.
It doesn't, unlike Oxo. It doesn't happen instantly.
How ironic. Andrea, thank you so much. I've loved this. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.